The Scholar Beneath the Pagoda Tree. In the waning years of the Ming Dynasty, nestled deep within the hills of Shaanxi, there was a remote village known for one thing: a great pagoda tree that stood alone beside the path leading to the ancient academy. It was said to be older than the village itself, its gnarled limbs reaching out like skeletal arms, casting strange shadows beneath the moonlight. Every spring, petals fell from its branches, even though it bore no blossoms. And every autumn, a faint sound of pages turning could be heard beneath it, though no soul dared to approach after dusk. The villagers avoided the tree. Children were warned not to play nearby. It was known simply as the Scholar's Tree, though few remembered why. Until one year, a young man named Xu Wen moved to the village. A bookish orphan raised in a Taoist monastery, Xu Wen had come to the countryside seeking solitude to study for the imperial examination. He rented a humble cottage near the edge of the village, within sight of the infamous pagoda tree. The villagers warned him, of course. Don't walk that road after sunset. Never read aloud beneath that tree. And if you see a man in scholar's robes asking for ink, run. Xu Wen, polite but skeptical, thanked them and dismissed the tales as rural superstition. He had more pressing concerns, like memorizing the analects and writing essays clear enough to impress the capital's sternest examiners. On his second week in the village, Xu Wen found himself caught in a sudden spring rain on his way home from the academy. The quickest shelter was, unfortunately, beneath the pagoda tree. He hesitated, then laughed to himself. "Am I to be afraid of a tree now?" he muttered, pulling his cloak tighter. As the rain poured, Xu Wen sat beneath the massive trunk, balancing his books on his knees. He opened his bamboo scroll, preparing to study while he waited. Then came a voice, soft, cultured, behind him. "You hold your brush like a man who has never argued with himself." Xu Wen turned sharply. A man stood beside him, tall, pale, wearing long, flowing scholar's robes soaked through with rain. His hair was bound in an old-fashioned topknot. His face was youthful but distant, as if carved from porcelain. Xu Wen stood, startled. I didn't hear you approach." The man smiled faintly. "I've always been here." They spoke. At first, it was idle chatter about essays and examinations, the Confucian classics and court politics. Xu Wen was impressed by the man's insight. He quoted lines from forgotten commentaries, made observations with eerie precision. Rain turned to mist. Hours passed like minutes. When Xu Wen finally looked up, the man had vanished. No footprints in the mud, no sound of retreating steps. The next morning, Xu Wen asked the local teacher at the academy about the man. The teacher paled. Was he dressed in sea-gray robes with a black jade hairpin? Yes, the teacher lowered his voice. You spoke with Liang Ji. Who is he? Was. Liang Ji was the most brilliant scholar our village ever produced. A century ago, he wrote essays so profound they were sent to the capital before he even took the exam. On the eve of his journey, he sat beneath that tree to compose one final piece. And he was found the next morning, stone cold, pen in hand, not a single mark on him. Xu Wen couldn't shake the encounter. That night, he returned to the tree, drawn by a pull he didn't understand. And there, he found Liang Ji again. Night after night, they met. Liang Ji guided him, corrected his essays, challenged his thoughts. Under the ghostly scholar's instruction, Xu Wen's writing sharpened. His confidence grew. But so did something else. His dreams became strange, filled with ink bleeding from scrolls, of roots twisting around his feet as he wrote endlessly beneath the tree. He began to feel tired during the day, pale, haggard, but he couldn't stop. He was so close. Then, one night, Liang Ji spoke with a different tone. "It is time." "For what?" Xu Wen asked. "To submit your essay. I will guide your hand, and it will be perfect, timeless." Xu Wen hesitated. "But you already wrote yours, and you died before submitting it." Liang Ji's eyes darkened. "Yes, because I hesitated. I wanted it to be perfect. Now, with your hand, I will finish what I began." Xu Wen stepped back. "What are you saying? You've already stayed longer than you should." The roots of the pagoda tree stirred in the dirt. The air turned heavy. Ghostly whispers surrounded them, echoes of unfinished essays, weeping voices of scholars who had studied too long, strived too hard. Xu Wen fled. He locked his brush away, sealed his books. The village healer said he had come within a breath of death. It took weeks, but he recovered. He never again walked that road. When spring returned and petals fell from the tree, he simply bowed from afar. Years later, Xu Wen did become a scholar. A good one. Not the greatest, not the most celebrated, but alive. And sometimes, when passing students push too hard, study too long, he warns them. Never seek perfection from a ghost. They have all the time in the world. You do not.